Hi, crafty friends. It's Diane, the Creative Inkster, and today is Wednesday, August the 2nd, and I'm not going live, but I'm going to give you this video tutorial I recorded just a little bit ago because today is my son's 29th birthday, and we're going to celebrate with some takeout and some card playing tonight, and so I will be busy at 7 o'clock. So here's the card I have for you. It is a fun fold card that when it stands up, has this really nice feature on the front of it. And I'm going to show you how we put this together and the pieces that you need. So let's get started. First of all, this is the In the Moment stamp set, which I have not used in a while and used here to show the girls standing on the deck, looking out perhaps over the ocean. And the greeting is, "You're always so good to others, be good to yourself too." And the one I'm going to use tonight with this card is Places in the Heart. We're going to do this one here. Reminds me of my family who are at the beach at the cottage this week. Righty. So the first thing you need is a piece of cardstock for your basic layer, your basic card base, and it's your standard 8.5 by 5.5 inches. So grab your paper trimmer and score. This is going to be really important. So along the 8.5 inch side, so the longer side, we're going to score at 2 1/8 and 4 1/4. And that will give us the one large panel to the right. So we'll fold this in half at the 4 1/4 inch. And then instead of folding it back, which we normally would do, we're going to actually fold this piece in as well. So I think we can just tuck that aside for the moment. Grab your bone folder and just burnish that one side in and then the halfway mark over as well. And we'll just leave it that far for now. The next thing we're going to need is to add some pattern paper to the front areas. And we are going to, wait a minute, we're not going to do that first. We are going to do the mechanism first. So let's get that ready. So for this, you need 2 squares that are 2 inches. And we're going to score them in half at 1 inch. So it's a square, doesn't matter which way you do it. And I did it matching my cardstock and card base so that it was the least sort of sticking out. Than if I had done it in a different color, which would have made it very colorful, but maybe it wouldn't have helped that way. And we're going to fold those in half. And now we're going to stick these on here. That's going to be our mechanism. And then we're going to try to cover up those pieces here. All right, so the important thing is that we want these 2 folded in half with the fold lines in the middle and facing the fold on the front of the card. And we're going to line up as best we can the tops and the bottoms. And we are gluing the back to the card front right up at the score line. So on the sides, once it's glued in place, these pieces should stick up. That's what we're going for. All right, you can use tear and tape. You can use liquid glue. You can use Stampin' Seal, whatever you like. This is what I happen to have handy, so this is what I'm going to use. Oops, fold it in half. I'm going to put my adhesive on it. Get that extra piece off there. And I'm going to put fold side to the fold. Now, I'm not worried if it's not perfectly centered, but if that's important to you, grab your ruler and line it up so it's 1 3/4 and 1 3/4 on either side. Okay, 1 3/4 out from the center. So we'll do the same thing on this one. We're going to put it on that side, so we have the open side facing out. Go. I think I did my first one with Tombow. So you have to hold it a little bit while you're waiting for it to dry. But if you use Stampin' Seal or tear and tape, then you don't have to worry about that. All right, there's our mechanism basically set. And then we're going to cover up this piece here with 2 pattern papers of 1 7/8 by 5 1/4. So this is the Earth and Textures one, and I'm just using this side because I thought it would go nicely with the sand motif I'm working with the person sitting there with the little one. So that was my thinking on this. I did pull an alternate piece out, and that's this matching to the card base Pretty Peacock. And one side is the smaller checks like I used on my original card, and then the other side is the larger gingham checks. And but I'm going to go with this one. I think it's going to be nice. So now I'm going to glue these pieces down, and that will just cover right in. So it's 1 7/8 by 5 1/4, and that gets you a nicely matted piece on each rectangle. How nice. Keeping our flaps open here. To put the next piece on, we're just covering up the one side that is already glued down. Center this as best we can. There we go. All right. So now we're going to grab our squares. We have one to stamp on, that's 2 3/4 inches square. Set that aside. And then we have the piece that goes over here that is 2 7/8 inch square. So it's a teeny bit larger and just gives a little bit of a matte finish like I did on this one. So you can do a similar to your card base. You can do bring in another color as I did on my sample card. I pulled in soft seafoam, a color I don't use very often. So whatever floats your boat. So let's get the big one set up here. Now it does not have to be perfectly lined up, but you can get it lined up well if you glue it down like this, and then you also check the other side. So it's going to be, let's measure it out. If you have them butted right closely up there, in total this is 2 inches, and this piece is 2 7/8. I didn't overly think this, to be honest with you, but I'm going to put my adhesive on the smaller pieces. That way I don't have extra glue sticking where I don't want it to be. Particularly important if you are using liquid glue. There we go. Maybe I'll have a little bit piece here. It's not going anywhere. All right, so then just press those pieces down and center this as best I can. Sort of top to bottom, side to side, looking good. There we go. And then this piece will be our stamped layer. We have a couple more pieces left. Grab your dimensionals because we're going to want to pop up the one piece on the right. And the reason for that is so that this has something to grab onto when you stand up your card. If you had that glued right down or had nothing there, there'd be nothing to hold it in place. So this piece is 1 1/4 by 5 1/4. Oops, turn my lights off. There we go. And we'll put some dimensionals. And now this is where you want to be kind of generous with your dimensionals. I'm going to put 6. I would even suggest 8. I'm going to put 8. I just feel like it needs that to hold it in place. You can use long strips too, you know, the foam adhesive strips or dimensionals or the edges of your dimensionals, whatever you have handy. And press them down so they stick in place. Peel the backs off, and we're going to put it flush to the right. Over here, oh, excuse me, a little bit of a border. I know that's hard to see. So there's our card base here. We have a little bit of a border because it's just a bit smaller. So it's 1 1/4 by 5 1/4. There we go. And so there is a little bit of a border along the bottom, along this edge, and along the top edge. All right, and that's how this is going to stick there. Now, if you find it doesn't want to hold it in place, you just need to crease and burnish your center fold a little bit more. Play with it. Kind of gets it going where you need it to go, and then it will hold the spot in place. I did. I found I had the same problem in the beginning when I first played with mine. There, once you play with it, it's all good. And then we need somewhere to write our message. So this piece is 2 3/4 by 5 1/4. It's just basic white. And we're going to slide it in here between the fold line and our mechanism holder piece over here. And we're going to glue this directly down. If you want to do some stamping on it ahead of time, go right ahead and do that. And then stamp and then put it into place. It's 5 1/4, so it's going to come in with a little matting around it as well. And it won't go right up against the fold. Fold is there, and the edge of this is here, so it fits nicely in with a little matting. All right. Now let's do some stamping and some coloring, because that's the best part of all of this, beyond the embellishing. So I'm using gray granite. And this place is in the heart stamp, which may be a bit big for this piece, but I kind of did a quick measurement before I got started. As I was designing this part, grab a block and my D blocks are right at the bottom of this box. There we go. We'll grab a different one. There we go. So I know this isn't going to fit entirely on here. I'm going to cut a little bit of it off of the bottom, and that's okay. So the stamp is a bit bigger than my ink pads. I'm going to take my ink pad over the top of it. And I haven't stamped with this set in a while, so I've forgotten a little bit about whether it will be super dark with the ink. So let's have a test run. And it's the gray granite, and it's a bit saturated. So I want to give it a little bit less of the pressure on there. Now, normally when we use our Stampin' Blends to color, we want to go with Tuxedo Black Memento ink. They're two different types of ink and they work well together that way. But I found that the Tuxedo Black is a really stark color. And on this one, I just want it to be a little bit lighter. So I know I'm working outside the norm here. And I think that it's going to work just fine for me. I get ink on that part of the dress. Oh yeah, that's all. Yeah, perfect. All right, so let's get our scrap paper here. And we will center this over the 2 3/4 inch piece of white. There we go. Turned out wonderfully. So I don't need to do a lot of coloring because a lot of the image is there. So you might like that sort of black and white or neutral color look. And just stick it on there. I'm going to add a little bit of color though, and I specifically grabbed some lighter colors. So rather than the pretty peacock, I grabbed Lost Lagoon, dark and light balmy blue, and lemon lolly. I thought I would just kind of go with a little bit lighter colors. And I find with the Stampin' Blends, there's the brush end, which you can see is indicated by the actual brush look at this end of it. And there's the bullet end, and they're two different shades. I find with the bullet, I get it a little bit lighter. And so I'm going to do her hat in lemon lolly. And there's like a bow in the back here with the hat. So this is the light lemon lolly. Just adding a little bit of color. Almost like the sun and the shadows. The shadow is over top, and so you don't see all the color in the same way. But yes, if you didn't want to color it in, you're good to go directly, put it on there, and away you go. And then I was going to try to do a little bit of color on her dress. Again, this is the lemon, nope, this is the Lost Lagoon. And I'm going to use the bullet end on this one as well. Just add a little color in the lighter areas. That's her back with the straps coming up like here. So we'll just get this colored in kind of nicely. And I think the little one's shirt, I'm going to make it blue. Maybe add some yellow accents here or there. The other option I think would be really nice with this stamp set is watercolor pencils. So if you like your watercolor pencils and either a water painter or a blender pen to spread the lines out, because when you color with watercolor pencils, they typically, at least ours, leave little lines. And when you use a blender pen or a water painter, then you're spreading those lines out a little bit, smoothing it out and making it a much nicer kind of look to it. Pastels would be fun too. They're a nice light way to color. I wouldn't necessarily use my Stampin' Write markers because I find that they're a little bit they leave a lot of lines. They don't blend, which is why the Stampin' Blends are perfect, because they do a beautiful job of matching up the colors and not making there be total like lines between them. Okay, so I'm taking another look and seeing where I can see the arm here, and then the little guy or the little girl's shirt or top. And then I think there's a little spot here where the shoulder is and the shirt shows through. All right, so there we go. That's a bit of color. Now we're going to glue this on. It has a really light border. It's only a little bit smaller than the Pretty Peacock. And I think I would add a greeting as well. There we go. And there we have it. So on this one, I put a greeting on the inside. I love how this one turned out with the different colors. And this one here, I think a greeting kind of off the side of it would work. So let's see, what do we have in the stamp set? We have, they're larger. I think I'll hold off. I'll let this come to your imagination. I will post the card and I will add a greeting when I'm ready to share this card with a friend or a family member. A couple other tips. You can emboss this layer here to give it a little bit more interest. Same with, rather than designer series paper, if you would like to instead add cardstock that's been embossed or designer series paper that's been embossed, that adds a nice dimension as well. You can also, on your white layer, after you're done coloring it and before you glue it down, run that through an embossing folder with a tight embossing sort of edges, like not a lot of space, and then it makes it look almost like it's quilted. All right, there we go. I'm not sure what the Fun Folds card is called, but it is a fun fold card and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.